When I hear that hymn, Jesus, I love thee, my mind also goes to, my Jesus, I need thee. And I think sometimes in the environment we live today, I think that rings so true. I not only love Jesus, but I need Jesus every hour. We're going to be in Luke chapter 10 again this week. Luke chapter 10, verse 38 is where we're going to start. And we're going to go through verse 42. This is the gospel lesson from the lectionary. A passage that you've heard before. We were in Luke last week, Luke 10. This is just kind of continuing on in that same chapter. So this will be a passage I'm sure that you've heard at some point, but hopefully we can listen with fresh ears again today, or perhaps not fresh ears, but hear again what God has said to you in the past. Luke 10:38. Now as they went on their way, he entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary who sat at Jesus' feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks, so she came to him and asked, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all this work by myself? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. But few things are needed. Indeed, only one. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God. In 2002, Kenny Chesney, well, I've had to ask this, but I got to back up. Any modern country music listeners in the last 20, 25 years? Anybody listen to country? A couple, yeah. Now there's a look at you. You are the song of the redeemed. And I can hear you singing. Well, in 2002, Kenny Chesney, a country artist, released what would go on to be a hit for him. It wasn't number one on the Billboard, but it reached number 6. And it was out of the album that was a smashing number 1 hit album. He had hit after hit come off this album. And it was so wisely named and such intelligence to the title. It was called No Shoes, No Shirt, No Problem. But apparently there was a problem because one of the songs on the album identified a problem. And the song was called A Lot of Things Different. Again, big hit for him. He did well with it. But the song chronicles a story of someone looking back on their life, excuse me, and reflecting on all the things they had done or not done, and wishing that they had done a lot of things different. Now, a little bit of tidbit of history. That song, if you've ever heard it, was actually written by Whispering Bill Anderson. How about that? Bill Anderson was the one who wrote those words. And I sometimes, if I ever get to meet Bill Anderson, now it's just burning in my mind, to ask him, did you ever get a chance to skinny dip with Jimmy Carson? Because you mentioned it in the song. Whether it's hyperbole or not, that's what he says in the song. So now it's got me imaging Bill Anderson trying to decide whether he's going to jump in the water. But Chesney's song was a hit. And I think it was a hit because it begins to ping parts of our brain that we look back on our life, reflect on some things we would have done different. I don't know if there's a lot of those things or a little of those things, but I can about guarantee you if we answered honestly, we would all have to say that there's some things we would have done different. There's things that we would have changed. Things that as we look back, we realize were not big deals, but we made them a big deal. Or things that we didn't make a big deal that were a big deal. That's the context that we kind of end up with here with Martha and Mary and Jesus in Luke chapter 10. Now I want to start the sermon by saying, has any of you ever seen, or, well, first, have you read the book Vinci Code by Dan Brown. And then it went on to be a smashing movie. Well, the premise behind that is that Jesus was married. Now, when I read this text, I'm convinced Jesus was not married. He would have known better than to get in between two sisters having an argument. Like, Jesus, you know better than this. You're Jesus. And here you are inserting yourself between a spat between two sisters. His inexperience with the ladies was the full display that day. But Jesus nonetheless inserts himself in this argument with two sisters, Mary and Martha. Here Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus, listening to his teaching. And here Martha is scurrying around the house, making sure the sweet tea's been done, making sure the casserole's out of the oven. And I can almost hear her, if she would have been Southern Martha, if she would have been the Martha from Chesney, South Carolina, where I grew up, she would have been saying, Jesus, tell Mary to get up and check the macaroni and cheese. It's going to burn. She's down here listening to you like she don't have nothing to do. That girl's got lots to do in this kitchen. And there we are. Jesus is encountered with this spat between Martha and Mary. And he inserts himself right in the middle. And he says something to to Martha, that kind of stings me, to be honest, reading this many years later. He says, Martha, you're distracted with so many things. You're distracted with so many things. You know, I found in my life that I can be distracted with a lot of good things. They're not bad. They're not somehow inherently evil or off the charts immoral or wrong, but I can find myself distracted by lots of good things, so much so that I don't really get to the things that possibly might matter most. As you all know, I worked in hospice for quite a long time, over 10 years. I have sat with dying people more than I can possibly count. I've sat with them months before they die. I've sat with them moments before they die. But in that time with dying people, which, by the way, I guess I've said this to you. I mean, I've been here long enough, I've heard all the stories. I don't have anything new to give you. But you've heard me say this before. The people who are dying will teach you more about living than anyone. They will teach you about living, if you listen. So I have the privilege of sitting with dying people, and they taught me about life. A lot of it I haven't quite assimilated and mastered yet. I'm working on it. But over those 10 years, a countless number of people that I've sat with, I've heard a lot of confessions about things they wish they would have done different. Lots. And would you believe that after 10 years of that work, more than, I can tell you with a shadow of a doubt, I have never, without a shadow of a doubt, I have never heard any of those people tell me that they wish they had worked more. I haven't. I've never had one person say that I wish I would have put more hours in at the office. I never had one person ever tell me that if only I would have just worked harder for the company, I'd have got what I needed from them. No. What I heard over and over and over is I wish I wouldn't have spent so much time away from my family. I wish I hadn't worked as much. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with work. We've got to pay bills. I get it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if we're not careful, maybe we can get so caught up in the identity of that we miss what matters most. And then in the end, we're looking back, wishing we'd done a lot of things different. And sitting with dying people, I've heard people say they wish they'd saved more, they're worried about their family financially. I've heard that. But never did I hear. Sometimes, I was in the deep rural South and the rural communities, so rarely did I have anyone ever call me child. I had a lot of people say, preacher, yeah, I regret not taking that trip with her. Our preacher, I regret not doing more vacations with him. That's what I heard. That was the things I heard over and over that people would do different if they could. You see, the things they were doing were not bad. They just weren't the best. They weren't the things that was going to really nurture them. As I said with these individuals, I heard it over and over. Preacher, I put in 40 years there. There's not one of those people from my work come out to see me. Not one. But my family's here. My daughter. I got to tell you this story because if I can get through it. This has been, oh my gracious, almost 25 years ago. I'm doing these visits, and I had to cover the entire rural part of Rutherford County, and I know that don't mean much to most of you. But Rutherford County is a large county. So I would cover parts of the county that were all the way on the southern east side of the county, and then I would have to drive to the northern west side of the county. That's a big distance. Places from like Cliffside to Lake Lure. And one day I was in Henrietta, which is a little town not far from Cliffside, a little mill village. The mill had been gone many, many years ago, even before the 94 exodus. The mill had shut down. Poverty, drug addiction, generational poverty was there. I went inside this house, and there was no floor. There were holes in the floor. I would literally step on the dirt and then step back up on the little pieces of wood and step back in the dirt. There was no floor. Dirt. I meandered my way into the back to the bedroom where the gentleman was, and we talked for a little while. We usually do to kind of start things off rather generic. Weather, baseball teams. And he finally looked at me and he said, "Preacher, you know what's really hard about this dying thing?" I said, "No, what?" He said, "It's leaving my family." I said, "That other way." I got in the car and left Henrietta, and I drove up a meandering driveway to a house that if it was worth $100,000, it was worth $3 million. Walked into a marble foyer, chandeliers, crystal hanging from the ceiling. There's a lot of money in Lake Lure, Chimney Rock area. I meander my way a long way through the house to the back bedroom. And I sat down and we talked to this gentleman, or I talked to this gentleman for a little while. Millions of dollars of real estate under his fingertips. Bank accounts must be full. And he looks at me and he says, "Chaplain, do you know what's hard about dying?" "No. What?" "It's leaving my family." And in that moment, the guy who didn't have floors in Henrietta, and the guy living in a marble castle in Lake Lure were the same. The same worries, the same concerns. And not one of them told me they wished they'd worked a little more. I say all that to say we can get so caught up in the things that don't matter, that we miss the things right in front of our face that matter. Martha was so busy with good things, but Mary was idle in the moment, soaking up the best she could, which was time with Jesus. You've heard me talk about FOMO, the fear of missing out. You've also heard me talk about JOMO, which is the joy of missing out. That's what I have these days. I'm excited when I don't know things. Somebody told me the other day, "What do you think about?" I was like, "I have no clue what you're talking about." I'm enjoying the joy of not knowing some of the things today. A friend of mine recently, I don't know if I told you the story or not, they were getting married and they said, Travis, it's a small guest list. We're keeping it just a family. We love you, but we're not gonna be able to invite everybody else who can come. I said, wonderful! Know that I love you and I bless your union and I am thankful that I don't have to go and sit in the ceremony. I'm really enjoying missing out on some things. Because sometimes the things we miss out on give us moments to reflect on what matters. Not having a ding and a twing and a buzz on our hip or in our pocket every 5 seconds. It distracts us when we have those things. And you say, I'm going to tell you, our nervous system is not set up for that. Our nervous system is not set up for every time there's a national tragedy, which is like every 3 seconds, it seems like. Your nervous system is not set up to have something in your pocket buzz you and you look down and you see it. God didn't create us that way. Why? Because most of them though sometimes I wonder looking at society, but most of them were set up to be empathetic people. We're set up to care. We're set up to hurt when others hurt. So every time something in our pocket buzzes and tells us of a new tragedy and we're looking down at it, our nervous systems are not set up to handle that. So it can send you down a spiral of bad places and bad mental health. I don't know if Jesus had cell phones in mind, but kind of what I hear Jesus saying is, quit getting distracted with all that. Put down the phones. Put down the macaroni and cheese, Martha. Sit at my feet. Relax. Listen. Take in the good. Don't only take in the bad. Take in the good things. Don't let this flurry of activity that is happening around us keep us from remembering the good that is there. And I'm going to tell you, I can't think of a better time in human history. There might be. No, there's not. Because never have we been more connected as we are now. Never in human history have we been able to find out what happens in a remote place in China in 3 seconds like we can now. So I'm going to say it. Never in human history have we ever needed to hear this more. Quit getting ourselves caught up in everything. Stop getting yourselves caught up in every tragedy, I'm not saying don't care, but I'm saying don't get yourself caught up in every news alert that comes across your phone. Because if you do, you're going to find yourself spiraling. Because you're getting so distracted that you're missing the goodness that God has given us. I'll go ahead and say it. You know, I just moved over to Oakland, a little community there. They have a restaurant nearby called Cheddar's. Has anybody ever been to Cheddar's? I haven't been yet, but they just reopened. I'll go. But I say that to say this. I went because I was interested in the restaurant. And the next thing I know, on my phone, the next thing I know, every Facebook feature is somebody tagging Cheddar's and celebrating Cheddar's now. And I got to thinking, I really don't know that Sarah. I don't need to know that Sarah loves the potato soup at Cheddar's. Like, I don't have to know this. I don't have to know that Dominic now gets them a 1 star because something bad happened there. It's like, I don't need this constant barrage on me. And neither do you. Jesus knew that. Jesus knew that Mary was getting the good stuff. Mary was at the feet of Jesus, taking home for just a moment the goodness of God and the direction of God, and not getting so caught up in everything that's swirling in the atmosphere. It's Martha. So I'm going to leave you with a question this week. If you would, I ask that you entertain it. Maybe spend some time even praying about it, if you're willing. Maybe spend some time in your own way at the feet of Jesus. But I want you to consider, are you doing things that are distracting you from the best things you could be doing? And that's not a guilt trip about your service or your activity. That's not what I'm talking about. Would you spend a moment just reflecting on your own life, reflecting on your own situation, your own behavior? And would you just for a moment ask yourself, are you letting the good things distract you from the best things? Are there some things that you need to put in order? Are there times the macaroni and cheese can wait for the sake of maybe something you need for your own mental health, for your own physical health, for your own spiritual health? I don't mean this sacrilegious, but for God's sake, leave the macaroni and cheese be. You don't have to do it. Spend some time taking care of the good things. Spend an extra moment with your family. Hug your children just a tad bit tighter. Give your spouse an extra kiss. Or someone you love that extra kiss. Romantic or not. Soak up the good stuff. So hopefully when we get to the end of this journey, whenever that is, we're not having to sing to ourselves that we wish we'd done a lot of things differently.